All right, let's do it.
First had to wipe that last sheen.
Right, exactly.
It's
all right. What's up, Dolphins fans? Thanks for tuning in. This week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive. I'm your host, Chris Perkins, your Dolphins Sun Sentinel columnist. That's Dave Hyde, your your Sun Sentinel columnist. Sorry about that, Hyde. Let's jump into this because there's a lot going on this week. Your Miami Dolphins 8-5. They've lost back-to-back games. They're heading to Buffalo for a short week Saturday night game in frigid conditions. Supposed to be in the low 30s, maybe some snow on the ground. But Hyde, we're going to talk about a lot of things going on. One thing that jumps out to me, Mike McDaniel has not cracked a joke in a press conference in the last week. And this is a guy who was joking during the 3-game losing streak. So we'll talk about that and if that's significant. We'll talk about whether fans should be worried about what they've seen from the Dolphins recently, considering Tua has been off the last couple of games. And there's a pattern that's emerged that shows the Dolphins and their offense both underachieve against teams that are 500 or better. The third down offense and the run game, especially sluggish, that's been the pattern all season. Does this team have an offensive identity aside from big plays? What can Mike McDaniel do differently? What can Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator, do differently? And most importantly, what do you think of the Dolphins' playoff chances right now? Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde, we're going to talk what's up with Tua and the Dolphins offense. The 49ers, as you so astutely pointed out a couple of weeks ago, they dropped their linebackers a bit deeper. They took away the middle of the field. The Chargers did something different. Again, as you pointed out, from being in their locker room, they played press man coverage. Are either of these strategies repeatable for the next 4 opponents? And what can the Dolphins do against these strategies, Dave Hyde?
Yeah, not only are they repeatable, they will be repeated. I mean, and that it'll be the adjustment to the adjustment, and we're in that phase now. First of all, that game was a shocker to me. I'm still, of all the games this year that I thought going in, they're playing the 30th ranked defense. That's hurt. I mean, they're 30th ranked, and they've lost 3 starters from the previous week. And they're playing backups across the secondary. I thought if they lost that one, it'd be 40-37. I didn't think they'd lose it in the fashion they did. But the Chargers gave a blueprint of being physical with these receivers and rushing for and getting to Tua. That in November, you look at the biosphere that Tua played at great weather, 2 sacks all month. The receivers running free. He stood there and his accuracy, his decision making, the strengths of him came out. Now you see, okay, when they get a rush on, and there's I was breaking down the stats today, there's a big difference when he gets hit and when he doesn't get. After talking to the Chargers defensive lineman in the locker room, I looked up the stats, and that biosphere, in other words, that football biosphere that he's great if it's perfect. And now you go to Buffalo with the weather. So questions, it's a season, all of a sudden it's become a different season than it was a month ago.
Yeah. And it has. It definitely has, Dave, because now we see that this team struggles against good teams. And that's something we're gonna get into a little bit later. Looking at the Dolphins offense further, why can't these guys run the ball? I don't know if this is an offensive line thing or a running back thing, but again, we keep going back to this. We know Mike McDaniel likes to run the ball. He was the run game coordinator in San Francisco. When he was their offensive coordinator last year, they were 7th in rushing. He came up with ways to get Deebo Samuel, a wide receiver, the ball as a running back. And so he found ways to produce rushing yards. And we've seen them with the jet sweeps to Tyreek Hill and a couple of other, little things. We've seen the direct snap to tight end Hunter Smith for a touch, or Durham Smythe for a touchdown, and we saw it to Alec Ingold for a touchdown. But why can't these guys run the ball high? Why? And I think when we talk about, the 8 for 33 against San Francisco, I think that's a product of an inability to run the ball, not not willing to try to run the ball. I thought McDaniel just figured we can't do this, so keep trying. But why can't these guys run the ball high?
Perk, I'd say, I just looked, I had to double check here. 19 carries, 92 yards against the Chargers. That's almost 5 yards a carry. Okay, where it's approaching that. And here's the real problem, I think. 49 plays that game. Okay, and the same in San Francisco. Not a lot of plays for the offense. Part of that's they're not getting on the field. And the defense, I can't really blame them, and either lost too much. The defense gave them chance after the offense chance after chance, but the Chargers are having some long drives. Okay, it's the cliche bend don't break defense a lot of times, and the bottom line is San Francisco had the ball for 40 minutes compared to the Dolphins, and the Chargers. The Chargers ran 78 plays to their 49. So, I just don't think they're getting to the running game. They've been behind. You're going to have to pass more. They've between being behind and not having many plays, I just think that's fallen on the running game.
Yeah, and look, you've got to. One of the things that when we talk about the offense and the time of possession, and the Dolphins are bad on third downs, right? They cannot convert third downs offensively. But if you go back and look, well, part of that is because they don't do anything on first or second down. And they have 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 10, and they're so predictable. And that gets back to running the ball. Like we saw the last game, you come out and you throw the first possession on all 3 downs, you're 3 and out. And yeah, Tyreek, you probably had him on that very first play of the game. It didn't work, whatever, but you need to be able to get a 4-yard run on second down, a 5-yard run, and make it third and manageable, but you're not able to do that. And so now you can't extend drives, you're 3 and outs because you can't run the ball and get into third and manageable. And to me, all of this stuff just kind of snowballs. But let's go out to our first Twitter question, Hyde. And again, we always appreciate it when we solicit these Twitter questions, and you guys come through very, very strong. First Twitter question, I asked people, how are you feeling about the Dolphins? What do you think? Are you pessimistic? Are you optimistic? Our first tweet comes in from Forbin69, and to the response to how are you feeling? Disappointed. Not sure why Tua can only have great and bad games. No consistency at all. So, Hyde, I mean, where is I don't know what an average game is for an NFL quarterback, the 25 for 30, for out of 250 yards, whatever average is. Have we seen that from Tua, and why not?
Well, again, I get what you say. Why are these wild swings? Look at the Houston game. The first half,
right?
Would they put up 30? Did they put up 30 points in the 30 nothing at half? He's great. What happened in the second half? They lost Armstead, and all of a sudden there's pressure on Tua. He got sacked 4 times in the span of 2 series or 3 series, I believe. And all of a sudden the whole offense fell apart. Knowing Tua, knowing you have him, you've got to set up good conditions for him better than. And I looked up Josh Allen. Okay, according to Pro Football Focus, without pressure. His number, he has an 88 rating by Pro Football Focus. This isn't quarterback rating. This is their rating.
Yeah.
With pressure, he has 84. So there's a 4-point difference. Tua, with a clean pocket, is 90 rating by Pro Football Focus. Under pressure, he's 64. There is a wide swing on if they just get any pressure on him. So no, Dolphins. You got to, the problem just scheduled down the line, they play 3 teams that are top 10 in sacks. Okay. Yep. So this is really something that they got to figure out how to protect Tua coming up.
They do, Dave. And look, when we talk about this team and we talk about the offense, you know, I like to go to numbers. So I'm going to ask you, just like last week, which of these numbers are significant? The Dolphins right now are +4 in point differential. That's a big one to you. It's not to me, but is that significant?
Yeah, it says you're going to regress to the mean. And it's a guideline again that you're not a great team if you're a +4. Okay, you're just trending above 500 a team. Okay, and so you look, they have won a couple games in unscriptable ways. The Baltimore game, the Buffalo game in September. Okay, that in great seasons you get a couple of those. Okay, now they're going back and the San Francisco game, the Chargers game, that's on the offense to me, that they just haven't been able to get going.
I agree. Another number, the Dolphins are -3 in turnover margin. We don't need to discuss. We both agree that's significant. Yeah. Here are some significant numbers, Dave, and you tell me what you make of these. I got four little factoids for you here. The Dolphins haven't beaten a team that's currently 500 or better since they beat Buffalo 2 months ago. The Dolphins are 3-5 against teams currently 500 or better. The Dolphins are on a 5-game losing streak against teams currently 500 or better. The Dolphins are on a 4-game road losing streak against teams that are currently 500 or better. Clearly, Buffalo, a road team that's 500 or better. So all these numbers about how they perform against teams 500 or better, significant?
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers are stacking up. If it was 1 or 2, it's like last year. They went on a 7-game winning streak at the end of the year, but 6 of them, I believe, were against backup or worse quarterbacks. And so, yeah, they got their confidence going. But okay, then you want to see that translate against good teams that are riding high. And it was sort of this November. They beat 5 teams, actually, going back to the Pittsburgh game. I think their record was like 19-38 or something like that at the time. And so, okay, they got their momentum up and running. You could see, okay, they could be a really good team. And even San Francisco, they had guys running free all day in San Francisco.
Right.
And Tua had a bad day. And so I didn't make too much of that. The Chargers lost when you can't take advantage. They come up with a different idea on defense, a bad defense, and you can't take advantage of it. That scared me a little for this season.
Yeah, me too. And now there are 2 ways to kind of stifle this offense and even kind of keep Tyreek Hill in check is very scary. To recap these losses real quick, when we talk about the 500 teams and the 500 teams on the road, you lost to Cincinnati on the road, you lost to the Jets on the road, you lost to the 49ers on the road, you lost to the Chargers on the road. So that's your 4 road games. And then you stick in the Minnesota game, and that's your 5 teams that are above 500 and your 5-game losing streak. So I do think that these things are significant, but there's still time to turn it around. And that's the whole key for the Dolphins. You've got 4 games left. There's still time to turn things around. And that leads us into segment 2. Dave, and the question here is, do the Dolphins need to make changes? And again, the blueprints are out for beating this team. The 49ers did it one way. The Chargers did it a different way. Should the Dolphins make changes on either side of the ball? I asked Mike McDaniel about this yesterday during the press conference, and he said he'd hate to think that things that they've been working on since August don't have answers within. So he thinks they need to do what they do better. And, when you look at things like using that prevent defense against the Chargers on 3rd and 17, you got all those guys against the goal line. It allows Austin Eckler to get to the 1-foot line, and they convert it into a touchdown. That's a big change, but just regular. I mean, should you run the ball more? More screen passes? I'm not smart enough to know play calling things, Hyde. I think the play calling has been fine. Like you said, there were receivers open, and against the 49ers and the Chargers, Tua missed them. We had some drop passes. But do the Dolphins need to make significant changes, philosophical changes, personnel changes? What needs to happen here, Hyde?
Well, you're going to make adjustment. I mean, we're past the season. If we're talking big changes, that you made some great philosophical mistake early in the year, in the summer, and all that stuff. No, they tweet. How do you adjust when the Chargers put a safety in the middle of the field to take away your crossing patterns? How are you going to adjust what they're going to play Tyreek Hill one-on-one or Waddle one-on-one? How are you going to adjust to that? And simple way there, put them in motion, try to just bet that their speed's going to beat the defender's speed. Even on that first play, Hill, the defender, I can't think of his name, but he's a first-time starter. He got praised. He made the play. He got beat by a step. If the ball is not over the back shoulder of Hill, but in front of him, that's a touchdown. So, look, you're going to make adjustments for what the defenses are doing, but the answers better be there, because you can't make big differences on what you do.
Right. I agree. I agree 100%, because it's too late. It's I guess you do that if you have an injury, but just out of plain whatever, no. And look, again, to me, it was a matter in the passing game the last 2 weeks of Tua being off and receivers dropping passes or not doing so much, not doing the things they did earlier in the season. I thought one thing that was interesting that Mike McDaniel said yesterday was he saw players pressing, and he saw guys doing things that they don't normally do. They're trying to make a play by themselves. And, to me, that kind of says either you don't trust the guy next to you, or you don't trust the scheme, or there's something in there that makes you think, I've got to go outside of what worked earlier this year. I've got to go outside of what I was coached to do, and I've got to do something else. And that's a little bit problematic. I don't know why that would come up now. Maybe it's the guy you're lined up directly against. I don't know, but, they've got to get back to being the Dolphins and doing things the way they did. When you say people press, that's natural. Now, part of that is natural because it's a big game. It's a big situation, things like that. But,
for this team hasn't been in situations where they've been, after when they went into San Francisco, people were saying nationally, oh, the Dolphins could go to the Super Bowl. Tua is the MVP. They were elevating to a new status, and all these guys have played in big games in college and all that. And I'm not talking to Tyreek Hill or Armstead, but I'm talking to the younger players here. And so, part of that's just adjusting to the stage a little.
Yeah. I would agree. But you've got to adjust this week, right? Let's go out to Twitter for another Twitter question, and this one is about some of those adjustments the Dolphins have to make. It comes from Davey Three Sticks, and the question, the tweet is: it's been widely noted that we have the most explosive receivers in the NFL. Only a matter of time before opposing teams took that away from Tua. Now the question is, how do we address that? And after the last 2 games, we apparently aren't able to answer this. Concerning. Look, again, you're not making wholesale changes. I do think to a certain extent you've got to be better at what you've been doing. And again, Tua was missing passes that he normally makes, and guys were dropping passes. We saw the one where Tua throws it to Tyreek, and the throw is off, and Tyreek looked like he didn't even know where the ball was coming or which shoulder it was going to be over. We didn't see that stuff earlier in the season. So I would say to a large extent, they've got to figure out how they get back to being calm and relaxed the way they did. Let's put it out there, against the bad teams. How do you play against the bad teams the same way against the good teams, the same way you do against the bad teams?
Yeah, but I mean, the Chargers are a bad defense. I mean, they're an average team held up by Herbert. I mean,
they're 7-6. They're not good.
They've been an awful defense without their best players. So to me, everybody knows the strength of the team is what it is. It's the speed on the outside, but where's a tight end? I thought the running backs, Mustard would now obviously, they expected a little more production out of the running back in the receiving game. The player who will not be named is now, they traded him to Denver. He'd had like 5 drops. Okay. But, the secondary receivers, and you can see what they need in the offseason. If they don't think Gesicki can do anything in this offense, and they obviously don't, because he's just missing in action, and that's a little mystifying to me, because here's a big target that would help. Against the Rams, Mostert had 1 catch, and you look at, okay, there's a safety valve for the quarterback to take, and is it Tua's not taking him? He was a little locked in on Tyreek Hill on Sunday night, okay, and maybe he was the only guy getting open as he saw it, but you need a tight end, you need a receiving running back in games like that too.
Right. The Gesicki thing is just absolutely mystifying, because now that you've kept him past the trade deadline, why not use the guy? Like, it's a waste of talent.
You think there was really trade value for him? I mean, at $11 million, and he has to fit. He's an offensive fit. He can't block, or he doesn't block, so he's a receiving tight end. And to me, there's value in that to use.
Yeah.
Now trading at the trade deadline, I'm not so sure.
Well, I mean, you kept it. He's on your squad. That's the point. That, like, you have him, use him. That to me is the thing. All right, Hyde. Let's again, talking about changes here, and this tweet comes to us from Steel Core 1974. It says the offense was very offensive. The defensive coordinator is in above his head. Why do our cornerbacks line up 15 yards off the wide receiver with each play? If we don't mix things up this week, the Bills will be partying for 60 minutes. I'm going to defend the defense here. I've ridden with the defense all year, and look, they're not a great defense. They can keep you in games and they can make some plays, but we talk about time of possession and the Dolphins on third down, the Dolphins offense. Part of that goes into it. When your defense has been out there for 78 plays or 80 plays, they're going to get fatigued. They're going to get tired. And that doesn't explain the long drives at the start of the game, but it helps explain them at the end of the game. But look, I don't really have a big problem with this defense. It's not as good as the offense. To me, when you talk about performing against the better teams in the league, I'm looking to this offense. I'm looking to McDaniel. I'm looking to Tua. I'm looking to Tyreek. I'm looking to Teron Armstead. I'm looking to Jalen Waddle. Okay, I'm not necessarily looking at Christian Wilkins and Javon Holland and the 2022 version of Xavier Howard, which is not very good. These guys have had serious injuries to the defense. Not an excuse. Everybody has injuries, but let's be realistic. You're taking bodies away from a defense that wasn't great to start with. I thought it was good, but it wasn't great. So I'm looking at the offense when you're talking about performing against the better teams in the league. To me, the offense has more talent. It has the coach, the genius, right? The whiz kid. You've got to come up with something to score more points in these games against good teams. And to me, that's –
Was that a shot at McDaniel, the genius, the whiz kid? Is that?
Oh, no, not at all. No. Let me be clear. I like McDaniel's offense, but what I'm saying is, you ask the most talented guys to do the dramatic things, right? I'm not going to ask Zach Sealer to make the same plays that I'm going to ask Xavier Howard to make, right? So that's what I'm getting at.
If there's a criticism of this defense to me, it's the dynamic plays. You got a Bradley Chubb to make, get a sack in a game. That's nice, but you are expecting some, dynamic plays. That's why you got him. Javon Holland, where's he been this year?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I expected stardom for him this year after what he did as a rookie, and maybe it's, the sophomore slump and he comes back great next year. Christian Wilkins playing, he's going to get a lot of money this offseason.
Yep.
Okay. And so, but I'm with you. In general, it's not the defense that is the defense is buying time for the offense to come through. And in a lot of games they haven't, and they didn't Sunday. the criticism of the defense, and here we go again on the road, is they're giving up 32 points on the road this year and 16 something around there at home. But basically, it's double on the road than at home. It doesn't travel well, and that's something they've got to get a handle on, especially with games at Buffalo and at New England at the end of the year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's been pretty troubling. The difference. I mean, just a huge difference. Road and home. Defense usually travels. That's the thing. So that's kind of the startling thing there, Hyde. So Hyde, let's move on to our third segment here, and this is really the big one. And look, there's a segment of fans that are very nervous that the Dolphins are 8-5, and you're looking at these last 4 games, and you're just wondering, have I seen this movie before? How do you feel? Do you think the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs? Did they do the right thing by being so aggressive among Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, Teron Armstead with those acquisitions? They opened a 2 or 3 year window. It has to involve Tua, right? And so you can't shut that window. So how do you feel? I think the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs, but how do you feel, Dave? Hyde?
So you think they're going to win 2 games the rest of the way, basically, is what you're saying, right?
At least, yeah. You got to get to 10. I think so. Yes, I do.
They're going to beat Green Bay. So what you're saying is they're going to win 1 game against Buffalo and New England on the road, and the Jets here.
A division opponent. They would be Green Bay and a division opponent.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch of belief when you couch it in those terms of what they actually have to do. But some of the shine's been taken off the season the last 2 weeks. Okay, some of the shine's been taken off the offense the last 2 weeks.
Let me take some shine off my head.
Well, the sun isn't out in there. So, and the question is, can they get it back?
Right.
Okay, can they get it back? And it was a little odd in LA. They had heaters behind the bench.
Yeah.
Okay, it was cool for me. I'm a wimp. I lived down here. It was in I think the high 50s. Well, now they're going to go to Buffalo.
Right.
And if you think you need heaters in LA, so this gets into traveling and mindset and all that, and how you're going to 2 of your final games are up north, New England and Buffalo, and you better be a tough team mentally when you're from South Florida to go in and play in those conditions.
Yeah. And I'm a guy that, I don't think that weather is going to be a factor. I guess, I don't. Well, no, let me finish. Like Tyreek has played in cold weather, right? He played for the Chiefs, for goodness sake. I haven't looked at the roster to see, I know
How about Tua? What's his record in cold weather?
I don't know. I've not looked it up, and that's the big key. That's the big key. But Armstead, I know Armstead played in a dome in New Orleans. I don't, but I think it's, I think it's different for those guys than the skill position guys. And then the quarterback, right? That's really what we're talking about here, right? Can you grip the ball? Can you throw it the same way? Everything like that. So I don't know. Look, I agree with you that the Dolphins have the greatest home field advantage in the NFL with the September 1 p.m. kickoff, right? With the heat and humidity. Yeah. The next big advantage to me is Denver with the altitude. After that, you go with all the cold weather, Cleveland, Buffalo, Green Bay. So I'm not so sure that weather is going to be a game-deciding factor. It will be a factor, especially if there's snow on the ground and you're going to need to run the ball. And if it's windy and that affects the way you pass the ball.
It's a win. I hate to be going back to this. When you draft Tua and not Herbert, and you have to play in New England and Buffalo and the Meadowlands possibly every December or January.
Right.
You better have a game plan for that and better be able to trust what he can do in those conditions. And this is a big game. You lose that, then you're saying we needed to win 2 of the final 3.
Right.
And it gets a little, you talk about them feeling the pressure, trying to do too much in a game against the Chargers where you're 8-5 coming in. Then things get a little stickier.
Yeah, things get a lot stickier. And so, yeah, I think they did the right thing by opening this window. And, Tyreek is there and Teron is there and then Chubb is there mid-season. 100%, I think they did the right thing. But, yeah, now you've got to find a way to make it work. And, look, these last 4 games, I think the biggest thing that they could do for themselves is find a running game. But that's not going to happen magically. To me, after that, it pretty much goes on the offense. It goes on Tua and that passing game. And because the defense, again, that's not your team's strength. That's not how you built this team. That's not your head coach's specialty. That's not your quarterback's specialty. I know you're shaking your head there a little high, but you can't.
I think you're right. Giving the defense too much when you say it's not on them. It is on them in a game like this. Look at the Jets and the Bills last weekend, 20-12. The Jets defense kept them in the game, knowing, first of all, they're playing Mike White at quarterback, which, he's shown signs, but you're not going to have dynamic. But the larger point was the weather in that game. It was snowing, it was raining, it was cold, it was windy. That could happen again. Then it becomes on your defense to, hold serve, to hold the Bills under, because you're not going to score a lot of points, neither team. But that's on the defense.
But Hyde, I haven't seen. Well, let me correct that. The defense was good early in the season, right? Because they hold New England to 7 points. Well, they didn't. They weren't good against Baltimore.
The defense won the New England game,
and Buffalo.
It won the Pittsburgh game. It won the Buffalo game. It gave them chance to win the Chargers game. It played well against San Francisco. It's been up and down, but so is the offense.
Yeah, but I think the defense has come closer to maxing itself out against good opponents than the offense has. And so I can't, realistically, from what I've seen, Hyde, I just can't I can't ask a whole lot more of that defense. They just don't have it. They aren't good enough to be a lot better. The offense is good enough to be, I don't know about a lot better, but more efficient. The offense has more room for reasonable improvement than the defense. That's why I put more of it on the defense. On the offense.
Yeah. The question going into these games in the cold and the wind and the rain and the snow, depending on what you get, can you run your normal offense?
Right.
Can you run that downfield, throw the ball deep offense in those conditions? And that'll be interesting to see. But that's the model they put in place in the offseason, what they went with. And to your point, I think they can run the ball. I just don't think philosophically they have, or the games have pointed them to running the last couple anyways.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here as far as them, offense or defense kind of picking up the slack. Ideally, it's a team thing, right? Offense, defense, special teams. But to me, I've just got to look at the unit that is better equipped to do more, and to me, that's the offense. But Hyde, let's go back out to Twitter, and again, I was asking people how you feel about the playoff hopes, and are you positive? What are you thinking? We'll get to a question and a response. The question comes from Let's Go Fins. And the question is, if the Dolphins make the playoffs, would that be considered a successful season? And there's a response here, Hyde, before you answer, from Jay Chappelle. And it says, we'll be a first-round exit anyways. Thought this season was going to be positive, but typical Dolphins can't make it happen. So you've got a little skepticism coming in from a good Dolphins fan, but we'll go with the first one first. If the Dolphins make the playoffs, would that be considered a successful season? I say yes. I say that's what you needed to do this year. Now, when you got to 8-3, you started thinking, let's win a playoff game, let's get home field, but let's go first things first. Yes, it would be a successful season if you make the playoffs.
Look, the way it works, you have to keep progressing towards a championship. Doesn't mean you have to win a championship. You have to progress. Now, making the postseason would be a progressive step forward.
Right.
But that comes with some adjoiners too. and that is if just to throw out the big question, if Tua is playing well up to the point of making the playoffs, and if Tua had lost 40-37, you say, okay, we still have our franchise quarterback. I mean, he's still, if he had played at San Francisco, the number one in rated defense, played well and lost, that'd be okay too. But the question, okay, you make the playoffs, but which Tua is it? As the question earlier was, you're getting wide swings in the quarterback play. Okay, if you're getting the bad Tua through the playoff loss, from here to the playoff loss, then you're thinking, well, they made the playoffs, but are they really progressively taking a big step forward? Okay, now, if Tua has a great end of the season and they lose in the playoffs at Kansas City because Patrick Mahomes is passed better or something like that, you're saying, okay, we're in good shape. So, yes, it's making the playoffs is a step forward. How big a step comes with some other questions.
I think that's accurate. And when we get to our second part here, we'll be a first round exit anyways. Thought this season was going to be positive, but typical Dolphins can't make it happen. I mean, I will say that we have to see what would happen if the Dolphins were a first round exit. What are the conditions? But I wouldn't say that's not positive. Even if it's a first round exit, that's positive.
Look.
Kind of.
Remember, this whole era was based on tanking. Okay, you sacrificed 3 seasons to get here. If they go out like they did and we're not even to this point, I don't know what we're debating other than it's fun. If they go out like they did their last playoff appearance in Pittsburgh, where they didn't even compete, then yes, and you're thinking, well, what have we done for 5 years? Where are we? So yeah, there are more writing on it than just to say, oh, they started the season and if they make the playoffs, it's great. No, this is a 5-year plan, okay? Yeah. And they've got to show that the plan is working and it's in place and working.
Right. I would agree with that. We'll see. Because right now we don't have any final answers right now. A lot depends on these final 4 games and if they make the playoffs and how they do. But right now, I guess the plan is working. You get an incomplete right now. I would have to say that. You get an incomplete, but you seem to be on the right path. But we'll see. Let's go back out to Twitter, Hyde, and again, ask people how you feel and are you optimistic, pessimistic? The response to how you feel from Jamie, total disappointment, anger, sadness. What do the Dolphins need to do to win Buffalo? So the tide has kind of shifted a little bit.
Like our job, our role, at least as I see it, is provide a ladle of perspective. Okay, remember 2 weeks ago, they were the greatest team ever. They're going to the Super Bowl. Even after San Francisco, in my mind, that wasn't a bad loss. It wasn't. It was a bad day, not one that defining one. The Chargers was a bad loss. Right. Okay, so if you feel sadness and anger, I get what you're saying, but take a step back and remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe they weren't as good as everybody was saying either. Let's see where the final 4 games. These will be defining. This is a defining stretch again.
Right. It is, and the response. One of the responses to that was, I feel the same way. This year was supposed to be different, and here we are struggling in December. To beat Buffalo, we're going to need to be the tougher team. They got to want it more, control the clock too, need to run the ball. I can't disagree with that last part. Yeah, you're
big on running the ball. Perk, you want to go back to the 70s, don't you?
Dave, you have no idea. You have no idea what's going on. You know that I'm a big run game defense guy. I'm sorry, I am. But look, let's get back into December 13th of 2022, which I'm struggling to live in the present. But let's do that. Let's do that. I just look. Running the ball, and I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all. That should not be the basis of your offense. It's a passing era. This is a passing team. It's how it was constructed. However, running the ball has so much value as far as controlling the clock and setting up the pass, Hyde, setting up third downs. Yes. You've got to.
It's the other way. It's
you
the
can't be
other way.
one-dimensional. You
It's
can't
the
be
other way in
predictable.
this area. The passing game, you score by passing. You set up everything by and you run the ball to control the clock and take it from out there. But I agree, you need to run the ball. But no, it's
Hey,
I'm bringing Larry Zonka to be your co-host here.
I know. I do. I need to bring Zonk and Mercury Morris on here to set you straight. You know, Zonk, boy, that's a great idea. Oh boy, if we could bring Zonk on here, this thing would be over. It would be a first round knockout if I could bring Zonk on here. Zonk, oh man, that would be so incredible. Okay, so but here's the flip side of all of this. Now, if the Dolphins win on Saturday and they sweep Buffalo, everything is back to normal, right? Everything is back to 8-3 days.
Yeah, and for all we're sitting here talking about the conditions in Buffalo and all this, Buffalo's squeaking by games. Okay, right. They squeak by Detroit. Now Detroit's playing better. They had a tough game against the Jets. Jets have a good defense, but the point being, they're not this 10-3 record and run that everybody predicted to the Super Bowl is coming with some bumps and you know, there will be chances the Dolphins have to win Sunday or Saturday night. There's going to be moments, and just like there were, look, they got outplayed badly by the Chargers. Okay, they had a freaky play for a touchdown, and still, when it came down to it, they had a chance to win the game, and that's the NFL. Okay, you're going to have and the question becomes, can they take advantage of that? Because Buffalo is not a dominant. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're a head and shoulders above everybody team.
Yep. Hyde, before we get to our prediction, I'll ask you a question and tie in a promotion. The two books over your shoulders there, Perfect of Don Shula, Swagger with Jimmy Johnson. What would their approaches be to these final four games? I have a feeling that Shula was a hard driving. He might cuss the team out and yell at them and demand they play better. Maybe Jimmy goes a little more psychological. What would they do in this situation? And can Mike McDaniel draw anything from those two styles that are vastly different from his? I think they're vastly different from his.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, before the Dolphins have a relatively young team in a lot of pockets, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
I mean, they have some
100% young.
Before, and he talked about this before the first Super Bowl, he had the youngest team in the league. Yep. They're going to play Buffalo, and he put a 2x4 down on the ground, and he said, Troy Aikman, come up and walk across it. Michael Irvin, walk up. Nate Newton, get your fat ass up here and walk about it. Then he walked across it, and he goes, now what's going to happen if I put this 2x4 10 feet in the air? He goes, don't fall. And that's sort of the mentality. He goes, mentally, where's your head going to be? Keep the 2x4 on the ground. And that's sort of what we're going into Buffalo, a big game. And I think Mike McDaniel might have been getting to that when he was talking about, guys trying to do too much. Stay in your lane. Now Shula, every meeting before you'll love this one, Perk. Every meeting in '72, Shula, Carl Tassif, the running back, would get up and give the scouting report on the other team, and then Shula would turn. The Bills are great at this, they're great at that. You got to watch it. Then Shula would turn to Zonk and he'd say, "Hey, Larry, what do you think of that?" And can we cuss on here? Where are we at?
Yeah, of course. It's the internet.
And Zonk would say, fuck the Bills or the Jets or whoever they were playing that week. And everybody would have, now that was a tough team. There you go, Perk. Zonk.
I love it. We're getting Zonk on here. He's going to straighten you out. We're going to get Zonk on here to straighten you out. Zonk will preach the truth. I love Zonk. All right, Hyde, it's prediction time. It's frigid conditions up there in Buffalo, short week. Dolphins back-to-back losses, big division game. By the way, we didn't even mention that the Dolphins, should they, before prediction, should the Dolphins be concerned about facing Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers the next 2 weeks? That's a stupid question, but it kind of gets back to, are you more worried about yourself or your opponent? Should they be concerned about these two quarterbacks, or should they be more concerned about Tua and their team?
Well,
I think Tua and their team.
I'd be concerned. I mean, if I'm Josh Boyer, I'm concerned about Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers. If I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm concerned about my offense. So you're playing. Who knows where Aaron Rodgers' head's going to be, or his game's going to be, or Green Bay's going to be for that. I'm not really worried about Green Bay, period. But Josh Allen, this is a guy who, since he's come into the league, certainly since his rookie year, has run the table on you until September. And that game in September, you don't think the Bill? I don't put much stock in revenge games in the pros and all that. I do in this game because the Bills, they're statistically they went 2-1 to the Dolphins in September. They were angry about the weather. They were angry about losing 13 players during the game because of the weather. Right. Angry about a lot of things.
We saw Ken Dorsey, how angry he was throwing his headset at the end.
Yes, that was beautiful. I think we need to get that up again. I would worry. I don't know, but I'd be aware that you're going into. You better match them, their energy, their toughness, their anger. You better match that on Saturday.
Yeah, and look, the Dolphins have done early season they did okay against came out with victories against Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I don't know how well they did, considering the Bills ran like 200 plays and Lamar Jackson had a 79-yard run and the Dolphins had to score 28 fourth quarter points to beat him, but they got victories. All right, Dave Hyde, prediction time. I'm going Buffalo 27-20, and the Dolphins' road defense is not good. Their road offense is not that great, and they don't do well against the good teams in the league. Again, 3-5 against teams that are 500 or better, 4-game road losing streak against teams that are 500 and better, 5-game losing streak against teams that are 500 or better. So I'm going Buffalo 27-20.
Yeah, when they started on this road trip, I said 1-3 or 1-2. Excuse me, my math's not good, but I thought the LA game was a sure thing, and I can't pick them to win in Buffalo. I mean, again, they'll have chances, but I'm going Buffalo 24-17.
Yeah, that's good. Now, and I'll add this. Again, I'm picking Buffalo. I give the Dolphins a puncher's chance because they can make big plays. And when you can make big plays, you can come back, you can change momentum, you can do a lot of things. But, yeah, I'm going Buffalo here. All right, so that's it for this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive. Tune in next week, noon, Tuesday. That's your boy Dave Hyde. I'm your boy Chris Perkins. We'll see you next week.